All right, I'm back again. 7 days of Halloween at John's Bar. So this one's a pretty weird one. I was chatting with a guy at the bar, and he was telling me all about when he was a kid. His he would go to his uncle's house to play, and he had a brother and a young cousin that was close to the same age. Anywho, when he got older, his uncle told him about that house, and he remembered back that there was all this girl that would come play with him sometimes, and he thought nothing of it at the time, but after he had heard the whole story, then the whole thing started making a lot more sense. Turned out that his uncle and aunt and cousin lived in that home that they rented. It was an old farmhouse, but they would hear footsteps upstairs, pitter patter, running around. And one day he came home from work and he saw a little girl looking out the upstairs window, and he was like, "My wife and daughter aren't home. What the heck?" So he was in a wheelchair, got his wheelchair out and went inside, and he couldn't get upstairs. They never used the upstairs. The stairs were not even fit to be walked up. Some of the steps were broken. They never went upstairs, but he called, nothing. And he was like, "I know I saw a little girl looking out the window." And he was pretty freaked out about it. And his daughter said, "Oh, yeah, that's so and so. I play with her all the time." And he was like, "Ew, it's kind of freaking me out." And then one day his wife was at work. She worked the night shift, so it was just him and his daughter home alone. And she was in the crib and he was sleeping on the couch. And he was all of a sudden woke up, and there was the face of a little girl just right there. And he was startled at first, but then he thought, oh, it was just my daughter. She had learned how to get out of the crib, and he was like, "Oh, I better go get her and put her back in her crib." And as he got in his chair and started going down the hall after her to get her in a crib, he saw the young girl run up the stairs, and he was like, "Oh my God, my daughter went up the stairs. How am I going to get her? She's going to get hurt." And he rolled up and he looked up the stairs and he was calling and nothing. And so he went into his daughter's room, and there she was, sleeping in the crib, not moved. And then he knew, yup, that was the ghost staring me in the face, and ran upstairs. Well, they didn't stay in that house long. They moved out. It was a little too creepy for them, but years later, they owned a restaurant in a couple towns over, and it was the kind of place where, like, if people would come in, his wife would go sit down with them and chat. Real friendly place. Anywho, some people from North Dakota came in, and she started visiting with them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we used to live around here, but we moved." And so she was like, "Well, where did you live?" "Oh, we lived in such and such town." "Oh, we used to live there too." And it turned out, after they chatted for a while, they lived in the same farmhouse. And she was like, "What are the odds of that? That's crazy." And the couple from North Dakota was like, "Yeah, that was our family farm, but after our daughter died, we couldn't stay there anymore. We ended up selling the farm and moving." And she was like, "Oh my God." Like, it all clicked into place. That was their daughter, but she didn't have the heart to tell them. But that pretty much wrapped up the whole story for who the little girl ghost was. Kind of sad.